Everybody, good afternoon. This is the Thursday, May 18th, 2017 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Susan, could you please call the roll?
Fish.
Here.
Saltzman. Udaly.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here. Our usual notice, the purpose of council meetings is to do the city's business, including hearing from the community on issues of concern. In order you'd think after the number of times I've read this, in order for us to hear from everyone and to give due consideration to matters before the council, we must all endeavor to preserve the order and decorum of these meetings. To make sure that the process is clear for everyone, I want to review some of the basic guidelines which I hope will help everyone to feel comfortable, welcome, respected, and safe at the meeting, as well as to help us to ensure that decorum is maintained. There are two opportunities for public presentation. Well, actually today there's one opportunity for public presentation. People may sign up for public testimony on the first readings of reports, resolutions, and ordinances. If you sign up, your testimony must address the matter being considered at the time. Please state your name for the record. We don't need your address. If you're a lobbyist, please say so. If you're here representing an organization, it's helpful to know that too. Typically, people get 3 minutes to testify unless we're way behind schedule, in which case we might shorten it. When you have 30 seconds left, the yellow light lights up. There's one buzzer. When it is red, there will be 4 beeps. If you're more than a minute over, your seat will start to get very, very warm. That's a new addition. Just kidding. Conduct that disrupts the meeting, for example, shouting or interrupting other people's testimony or interrupting during council deliberations, will not be allowed. Personal attacks and insults levied against city and council staff, many of whom are required to testify as a condition of their employment, will not be tolerated. People who disrupt the meeting face ejection from the meeting. If there is a disruption, I'll issue a warning that if any further disruption occurs, anyone who is doing the disrupting will be asked to leave the meeting. If you're asked to leave the meeting and you don't leave the meeting, you are subject to arrest for trespassing, but we hope that doesn't happen. If you'd like to show your support for something, a simple thumbs up is great. If you don't like something you're hearing, it's okay to have a simple thumbs down. Please no verbal shouting. With that, Susan, could you read the first item for us, please?
Item 519, revised residential solid waste and recycling collection rates and charges effective July 1, 2017.
The first of our utility rate ordinances today is for residential solid waste rates, something we're all excited to hear about right after lunch. Portland is committed to being a leader in the recycling and composting field, and our residents are recycling and composting over 60% of their waste, which is close to twice the national average, something that all Portlanders should be very proud of. Recycling and composting are cost-effective compared with landfilling. The proposed rates in front of us today include an increase of 10 cents per month, which is well below inflation, and it is the first rate increase in over 5 years. Portland residents are continuing to recycle and compost, and it's helping keep our rates low. Today, Michael Armstrong and Bruce Walker with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability are here to share their findings from this year's solid waste rate review and the proposed rates. Gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Michael Armstrong. I manage the sustainability programs for the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. With me is Bruce Walker, who manages our solid waste programs. And also with us, if you really stump us on questions, Ariane Sperry has done a lot of the analysis of the proposed rates this year. She's here as well.
Great, thank you.
So as you laid out, Mayor, we're here to propose residential rates. And so these address garbage, recycling, and composting, curbside collection, which is provided in Portland by about a dozen franchise companies to single-family houses, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Just to differentiate, the commercial system, which includes businesses as well as multifamily properties with 5 or more units, those services are provided by haulers that the city permits, And we set general standards for collection, but we do not set rates. So we're not talking about commercial this afternoon, just residential. Each year, the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability conducts a thorough analysis of the costs that are involved with providing the curbside service. Part of that is to contract with an independent CPA who goes through hauler financial records. As the mayor noted, this year, the result of that analysis is a proposed increase in the rates of 10 cents per month. And most of that's due to higher fuel costs and sort of a slight increase in labor cost as well. One important exception here is that on the west side, most of the west side of Portland, the parts of the city that have lower street connectivity, larger lots, narrow, windy roads, we have what we call a terrain fee that differentiates between the additional costs of serving west side residences from on the east side, where the costs are lower. And haulers continue to achieve some pretty impressive collection efficiencies throughout most of the city. They're not seeing quite the same efficiencies in those kind of hillier, windier parts of the city. And so the proposed rate increase is 10 cents for all customers, but there's an additional 20-cent increase for the about approximately 15% of customers who live in the west side areas that are covered by this terrain fee. So we're trying to recognize the different costs of services in the different parts of the city. So this rate review process includes anticipated inflation then adds that to the hauler's actual costs over the last calendar year. And let me get here to my rates. So the table here in front of you shows the proposed rates for next year, starting July 1, the current rates, the difference, 10 cents in each case, other than these west side routes that include the terrain fee, and then just have a sense of how many customers in which service level. You see the percent of customers there. So the proposal is a 10-cent increase for each of the service levels. And then to give a sense of the historical trend, as the mayor mentioned, this would be the first rate increase in 5 years, and that dates back to the time we made the changes, added the ability to put food scraps in with your yard debris in the green cart, and switch to weekly collection of yard debris, every other week collection of garbage. And so the trend here is quite remarkable, really. This would be the first rate increase, and even this year alone, it's less than the rate of inflation. That's a testament both to the efficiencies haulers are finding as they continue to continuously improve their service delivery. It's also a testament to the really great composting participation that we see in households, recycling as well. And so together, those things coupled with this system approach that lets us capture those efficiencies, the good practices by households, we are able to, for at least the last 5 years for sure, keep rates well below the rate of inflation. So that's the proposal for this coming year. I think we're happy to answer questions now, perhaps take testimony, come back.
Commissioner Fritz?
Thank you. I just have a question about the terrain map that's figure
Yes.
6 on page 5. Is that the same as the excess distance charge, or what's the terrain charge?
Commissioner Fritz, the terrain fee is currently at an additional $4 per month, and that it's encompassed on, or outlined on the map you see of where that is put in place on the west side. So it's not the entire west side of Portland. You ask about the excess distance. That's an additional charge that's applied when haulers go to further away from the curbside to offer off-curb service to certain customers.
I'm just not seeing the $4 charge listed anywhere. I see the map.
Are you asking, so the $4 charge is not based on geography?
No, I'm just in the Exhibit A. I don't see that listed anywhere.
So it's on, let's see,
Here's the excess distance. This is the terrain differential?
yeah, the terrain
So
differential.
is the terrain differential?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I see that. Now, thank you very much.
Okay.
At the very end of the exhibit, is that what you're referring to? On figure 6, page 3?
Yeah, I see
Right.
it now. Thank
That's
you.
the terrain
Okay,
charge I
thank
was
you.
referring to.
Got it, thanks.
Questions?
Any other questions for the time being? Great. Is that the
Great work.
entirety of your report?
It is.
Where
Why
is
is
the massive publicity
where-
about how we're only raising it 10 cents in 6 years?
We will
I'm
have
still
the
trying to figure out
press
why
release
2
ready
hours
to go.
was requested.
Well, we're not done yet.
You're not done yet.
All right, I have a
Okay.
question.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one who read the agenda
It's
the
for
way
the
the mayor
whole,
did.
The 2 hours is
to
for
our
for
Friends of the
all
League, the
all
mayor and I
three.
both
Okay,
read it
now
that way,
I'm
just for
following.
the record. I have.
Believe me, I wasn't complaining. I was like,
I do have
He
a
was nearly out
question.
of here.
okay, Commissioner Udaley's
If
saving us.
anyone will allow me to ask a question here.
Go for it.
Could you explain to us how the increase in compost and recycling has helped keep rates down? Because obviously it's still being hauled away, and I could venture a guess, but I'd rather hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so you're right. It still needs to be collected, picked up, taken to the transfer station, but it is then taken and turned into a valuable material. And so the per ton fee, when you take materials to the transfer station, the per ton fee for garbage is $95 a ton,
Correct.
in the ballpark of $95 a ton. The per ton fee for compostable materials is,
68.
thank you.
Okay.
And so that differential is what's helping keep rates lower. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Any further questions for right now? Any public testimony on this particular item, 519?
We have one testifier, Beth Vargas Duncan. Please
Come on up. Thank you, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and I'm glad the city's willing to reserve their extra hour and 50 minutes for me. No, just kidding. I'm Beth Vargas Duncan with Oregon Refuse and Recycling Association, and with me is the previous regional director with Oregon Refuse and Recycling Association. Well, I may be jumping the gun there. He's retiring at the end of June, and I'll be taking his position. That's Dave White.
Great, thank you.
So as ORA's regional staff, we represent the Portland Haulers Association, whose members provide regional solid waste and recycling collection services within the city of Portland. So the proposed rates, as you just saw presented by city staff, are part of the city's robust process and thorough annual rate review. So we work together with city staff and rate consultants. The haulers also hire a rate consultant to review very detailed cost information, and we have a very collaborative process where we exchange information and discuss our questions and work things out. So speeding to the end here, we believe, having come toward the end of the rate review process, we believe it's been a very fair process that will result in reasonable rates for the haulers, the citizens of Portland, and our customers. The haulers have worked together to provide efficient, modern, and clean services. And as you heard, over the past several years, the rates have remained flat or have actually decreased. So it's fair to say that perhaps a little increase, just under the 1%, as you heard, is appropriate at this time. So one other item that we'd like to address briefly is it's come to our attention that while there are a number of customers that still have cart cans, an actual garbage can that you pick up and carry down your driveway to place at the curb instead of a roll cart, and the number of customers, it's about 12% of the customers within the city, residential customers within the city of Portland still have cans. That's been trending downward. But the Portland Haulers Association would be interested in perhaps accelerating that a little bit, and we've engaged conversations with city staff to propose a planful transition so that we could have all customers enjoying a much more modern and efficient system so that it would be fully automated. Customers wouldn't be lugging their cans down to the end of their driveway anymore. They could just roll the cart down. So we are talking to them and just kind of planning to have a transition next summer. We had proposed a date of July 1, 2018, but we may have to slide that a little bit, realizing it will take a little bit of time, but we are hoping to do it perhaps next summer.
Great.
And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have just a
Commissioner
comment, Mayor.
Fish.
So you represent the haulers, which means the companies that then put the trucks on the street to pick up the garbage.
Within the city of Portland,
City of
most all of the haulers.
Yeah. So I had a meeting and first of all, I think the system works great, and we're, we have value the relationships with the haulers. I now live in one of the densest neighborhoods in the city, which is Goose Hollow. And I've noticed more than one company apparently allows their drivers to collect the trash on steep incline hills by just shifting from either side of the road to pick up the trash. I checked with Leah Treat, who is the PBOT director, and she said that is a significant violation of the law. And so I'm going to be following up with her because I got the names of the companies and some license plates. But I would like to have a conversation with you as an association, because I know that's not standard operating procedure. And it does create enormous hazards to the public, not the least of which is people coming up the hill are coming up against a truck driving the wrong way on the truck, and the vehicles are switching lanes illegally. And I think it may be based on some training issues or just lack of awareness of the law. But again, we appreciate the relationship, but there has been some, now that I'm living in Goose Hollow and I walk to work, I've observed some things which I think as an industry you'll want to get in front of. And I have spoken to PBOT, they'll be talking to you, and I'm hoping we can resolve these issues.
Commissioner Fish, I appreciate you raising that issue. It is not one of which we, as an association, are aware, but we can definitely look into it and verify that it's one of our members and do what we can to resolve that situation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz?
Well, first I want to thank you for the very collaborative and productive relationship that we have with the Haulers Association. It's one of, I think, a good example. In fact, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioner Udaley have been doing a lot of tours as they start their new jobs. My tour of the recycling facility remains in my mind one of the most interesting I've done. So thank the Haulers Association for putting that on for me, and would definitely encourage you to do that. I changed from my 32-gallon can to the 35-gallon roll cart when I looked at the numbers and they were the same price. Well, of course, I'm going to want the nice one that I can roll rather than the metal one. So I don't know how much we've done in terms of the recycler, the mailer that goes to people, but I would think just putting a banner on that saying that, you can get 3 extra gallons for free and also have a very nice roll cart. Hopefully we could start to attack some of those 12% who didn't get the message previously. Because it's also better for the haulers, right? Because they don't have to be picking it up. They can put it on the stand and it lifts it for them.
Commissioner Fritz, I appreciate that, and thank you very much. I, too, enjoy those tours, so I appreciate your recognition of the haulers in hosting those. And just with all due respect, a slight correction. You may not have been charged the full rate in the transition, but there is an actual rate that the haulers are able to charge. It's a differential of about 65 cents a month, I believe, between a 35-gallon can and, a 32-gallon can and a 35-gallon cart.
Well, in the table that we've got on figure 6, it says on page 1, it says the same, 21.70.
Oh, for every 4 weeks.
Right.
Correct. So we're both right. So I believe it's when you have every other week pickup that there's a differential. I'm relatively new, so I'd have to double check, but.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? There's no, for every other week pickup, there isn't even the option of the 35-gallon roll cart.
And
Yes, there
likely
is. It's right
that
there.
is the
I see.
situation because we are not taking new subscribers for cans.
Right.
The city has been working with the haulers to try to encourage folks to move and to keep that
Right.
trend downward to move toward carts.
Yeah.
So,
I-
but I
I've-
appreciate you pointing out that it's the same on the month or
On the
every
month, yeah.
4-week service.
And we
So-
take great pride in sometimes not even filling it once a month.
Right,
Because
right.
of the great service you're doing with the composting and the recycling and everything. I will say that one of the things I was most disturbed about when I did the tour was the number of people who put dirty diapers in their recycling bin. On
Right.
what planet would that be acceptable behavior?
Right.
So-
We keep working on education.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to take this opportunity to really commend our staff, Michael Armstrong and Bruce Walker and David White for doing a great job representing Portland haulers over the year. I think our recycling program is really first notch, top notch, and I'm proud of what we do here. And I know it's been a great collaboration over the years with the haulers to make our recycling program so exceptional. So thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just put my 2 cents in too. I think the results are extraordinary, and the reduction to the waste stream have been significant. And once again, the efforts of my colleagues who've been here for a while, your efforts, the efforts in the community, citizens who've taken it upon themselves to aggressively embrace this strategy have done a great thing, a great service for the community, for the planet, for the environment. And hey, folks, it's good business too. So thank you, and thank you for the haulers that you represent.
Thank you very much.
Continue to have a
Appreciate the
long,
kind words.
productive relationship. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, this is a non-emergency first reading of an ordinance. It moves to second reading. We'll read the next 2 items together, please.
520, authorize the rates and charges for water and water-related services during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2018, and fix an effective date. And 521, revise sewer and stormwater rates, charges, and fees in accordance with the fiscal year 2017-2018 sewer user rate study.
Commissioner Fish.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and colleagues, today I have the honor of presenting to you the proposed rate increases for the Portland Water Bureau and the Bureau of Environmental Services. This says 4th consecutive year, I think it's 5th consecutive year. I have directed our 2 utilities to present a rate increase that reflects good value at a fair price, and the bureaus have once again delivered. They have proposed a combined rate increase of just under 4.2%. And to put it into context, that's roughly $4 per month for the typical customer. And if you look over the last 4 years, we've gone from a combined rate increase of about 5%, and we're heading down to about 4%, which means significant savings for our ratepayers. And it reflects our ongoing commitment to providing good value to our ratepayers and to investing in basic services like replacing old pipes and preparing for the big one. A little more background on our proposal. The typical monthly bill is about $108. About 1/3 of everyone's bill is for water, and 2/3 is for sewer stormwater. Again, about 1/3 of your bill is for water, and the rest is for sewer stormwater. How do we stack up locally and nationally? Well, if you lived in Lake Oswego and Tigard, you'd pay more for your water. In a national customer survey released yesterday by J.D. Power, the Portland Water Bureau ranked 9th out of 24 West Coast utilities surveyed and 8th nationwide for water quality. On the sewer stormwater side, the typical customer will pay just over $70 a month. And as Dan knows, a big part of this is paying off the debt on the big pipe. Now, no one likes to pay more for a basic service, including me, but I am proud that we have been able to stabilize rates these last 5 years. I'm also proud that our public utilities continue to invest in improving our system while exercising discipline with ratepayer dollars. For example, this year, the general fund will continue to pick up the cost of preservation work at Mount Tabor and the water fountain operations. Thank you, Mayor, for your partnership on that, as reflected in your budget. There are a number of people that I want to thank today ahead of the presentation. First, Janice Thompson from the Citizens Utility Board of Oregon for her ongoing partnership with Portland's public utilities, and she's here today, and we'll hear from her. Second, the Portland Utility Board for their thoughtful consideration of both bureau budgets, particularly PUB co-chair Alan Warman and his future co-chair Colleen Johnson, whose appointment will come to council in the next few weeks. Alan is here today to testify. Shannon Fairchild from the City Budget Office, who provided thorough and independent analysis for both utilities. Next, I want to thank the 2 Mikes, Mike Stewart and Mike Jordan, and their finance directors, Cecilia Hune and Jonas Beery, and their dedicated teams at the Water Bureau and the Bureau of Environmental Services. These professionals serve Portlanders 24/7, 365 days a year, and I'm extremely proud to lead them. Finally, I want to acknowledge my 2 staff liaisons, Jamie Dunphy and Liam Frost. Now I'd like to invite Mike Stewart and Cecilia to kick things off with the Water Bureau's proposed rate. Mike?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. I'm joined at the table by Cecilia on my left, our Finance Director, and on the right by Mike Jordan and Jonas Beery. and Jonas has undertaken the task of pushing the infamous button to keep the slides moving. What the Water Bureau is going to talk about today is our proposed water rates for fiscal year 2017. I'm going to begin the conversation, and then I'm going to turn it over to the real expert, Cecilia. I'll get to say all the easy things. First, on your slideshow, you'll see two big fat bars. On the left side is resources that we need, bond proceeds, monthly charges, capital, and so on. And on the right, the green bars is what our requirements are, and in the accounting world, they have to match, and they do. Two of the small bars bear some mentioning. Capital revenues, 10.7 million. That's the skinny little bar near the top. What that means is we are paid by developers and others for mains and services. That's where our SDCs are charged, and capital interagencies with other bureaus. Sometimes bureaus do things and we have to build things for them to work around it, and they pay us for it. The second one that I would mention on the revenue side is at the skinny line at the bottom, other expenditures of 17 million. That includes the utility license fee, general fund overhead, pension obligation bonds, the costs of our bonds, and we have to round things up. It's easier to round than it is to chase the 6 digits worth of numbers out there. The total result here is 591 FTE for the Water Bureau. On the requirement side, capital program is pretty evident what that is. It's all of our large construction projects, Washington Park, the coming Willamette River crossing, and so on, big seismic projects. Operations and maintenance, that's pretty obvious what that is. Debt service, we borrowed money on bonds and we have to pay debt service. The little line at the bottom, other expenditures, again, utility license fee, overhead, pension bonds, and so on. The result of all of those numbers and putting our rates together is a retail rate increase for the Water Bureau of 6.7%. At the beginning of the year, last year's prediction was 8.4%. I think we do a very good job of kind of chewing this thing down. We make very conservative assumptions at the beginning of each year and end up chewing it, making it smaller. System development charges are 7.4%. The reason that is different is system development charges for the Water Bureau are backward-looking. Essentially, if you put something new on the system, you have a new customer on the system, we ask them to pay for the parts of the system that they're going to use that were built already. And when we add large capital items like Powell Butte, Kelly Butte, Washington Park, and so on, all of that gets built in, and this is a cost of service model, and that's what the prime driver is for the increase in SDCs. Our fixed fees and charges, it's the little rate book that you're used to seeing. We do those based on a cost of service model. We evaluate them every year. We kind of use a bell curve in that regard. It gives certainty to the developers and others who need to use those fees, and we try and make sure that over time we end up even up. And now I'll turn it over to Cecilia to explain this in more detail.
Thank you, Mike. I'm on slide 4, and what we have on slide 4 is water's 5-year rate forecast. As you may recall from the budget work session, the Bureau utilizes a rate stabilization account to smooth retail rate increases. The Bureau established the account back in 2006, and we've been building up on the funds in that account since we had established it. The fund will be, or the account will be used as intended to smooth retail rate increases. So with the rate stabilization account, and that's the blue bar that you see, our projection is 6.7% rate increase for each of the year in the forecast. The other bar, salmon color, is what the required rate increase would need to be if we did not have a rate stabilization account. And lastly, about the forecast, it does include very conservative economic assumptions. Again, that's something that we update every year. On the next slide is, what does a 6.7% rate increase mean to our customer's bill? For the typical residential customer using 5 CCF, and that's 3,740 gallons a month, those customers will see their bills increase $2.28 a month. For the qualifying low-income residential customers with a 50% bill discount, they'll see their bill increase $1.12. Your medium-sized commercial customers are your local grocery and restaurant chains like McDonald's and Albertsons. So for a penny, our customers receive about 1.7 gallons of water from us. On the next slide, the Portland water bill represents about 6% of the typical monthly utility services that most residential customers pay a month. Water bill, as proposed at $36.11 a month, is higher than a land phone line at home and the garbage services a month. But for the qualifying low-income customer, again, at 50% bill discount, $18.05 a month, their water bill will be the lowest utility bill that they would be paying each month. On the next slide is just a comparison of our residential customer bill.
Can I just interrupt you for
Sure.
one moment? I didn't know that.
You didn't know?
And that's really important, because I get a lot of blowback from people on water rates. And I think that slide bears a good hard look, and I
Go
think.
back to it.
I'll just say, I don't think we do a good enough job of telling this story, and that's not necessarily your responsibility singularly. I'm getting a thumbs up, excellent. I didn't know that. If I didn't know that, my guess is probably there are other people in the community who didn't know that either. But that's
Mayor,
an
can I just make a
interesting slide.
comment on
Commissioner
that? And
Fish,
I
yes.
thank you very much for your comment to my team. I think it has less to do with us telling our story, and it has more to do with the story that our critics have told, which has, in effect, told the wrong story. And a couple of points towards that. The combined bill that we send out, either electronically or paper copy, to people in our community, most people think of that as a water bill. It turns out water is just 1/3 of their bill. And so we probably have not done a good enough job explaining that it's a combined water, sewer, stormwater bill. And if people understood that more, and understood that part of the increase in rates over time was to fund compliance with a project called Big Pipe, I think they'd have a different view about their bill. If they knew, for example, that they pay more in many of our suburban communities, they might have a different view. But what I've observed during the time I've had the honor of leading the Bureau is that there has been a pretty significant effort by some of our critics to tell the wrong story. And I will say even the lawsuit that was brought against the utilities, criticizing some of the spending, interestingly, the primary claim in that case was the use of how we funded Superfund. Had nothing to do with water or water rates. And yet the acronym for the plaintiff's class in that case was water. So again, there is, I think, been an effort to frame this as a water issue because, of course, here in Portland, we care deeply about our water. The truth is, most of the long-term structural increases are the result of regulatory mandates that we've had to embrace, that we've gone alone, almost $2 billion of spending, and the majority of that has been absorbed by the Bureau of Environmental Services. So can we do a better job? I would like to think, Mayor, that yesterday you brought your first budget to a soft landing, and I think the community cheered, and there was not a single reporter in the room. So I don't know, how might you do a better job of getting your message out about your Bureau?
That's called a victory, when
Yeah.
there's no reporters in the room.
I think we have the same challenge. And I think when people are presented with the facts, they get a different view of the utilities.
Yeah, good. Thanks for the clarification. I
I have a-
appreciate that.
I have a
Commissioner
question.
Daly.
What is the qualifying criteria for the low-income program? Do you know?
It's based on the federal guidelines on medium or the
60% of medium family
Medium
income, I
family
think. I'm not the expert on that, but
That's-
we use a
okay.
third party to decide that, county
That's a little more
offices and
generous
so on.
than a lot of, that's more generous than a lot of needs-based programs.
It's really difficult to compare nationwide because the programs are so different and many utilities don't have them. But Dave Hassan, our former finance director, chaired the committee on the subject, and we think we have one of the most generous programs in the country. That's the safest thing to say. I can't say it's the most generous. It's very difficult to compare.
Mike, I've asked Commissioner Daly to assist us in the next year in thinking of ways we can extend this program to renters. And of course, historically, the challenge has been the discount follows what shows up on the meter. And so renters who don't have a meter have had a more difficult time accessing this, although as a group, there are a lot of people who would otherwise be eligible for the program. And Commissioner Daly is going to help us hopefully resolve that issue.
It's a nationwide challenge. People have been trying to figure out how to crack the code on this thing. And in some ways, we're a bill discount program, not a people discount program. It's who gets the bill, and renters don't often get the bill. So that makes it difficult to identify and figure out an auditable, trackable way to do it. But we welcome your help.
If one is at that 60% MFI or under, how do they know the program exists?
Most of we have lots of advertising, and we're going to be doing a better job of that. One of the things we've done is expand our public outreach. We're right now in the throes of interviewing for an outreach person that hopefully will have language capability too. So we do a lot of outreach. We do outreach to the 2 or 3 organizations in the county and the city that work with low-income people and make sure they're briefed on what our programs are. And our customer service reps, they're trained out of a huge notebook, and they're trained to ask if somebody's having trouble, do you fit, do you qualify?
So Mayor, an example is we contract with the county so that they advertise these programs to older adults that they serve. That's one example. And we work with Home Forward to make sure that folks that are eligible know about it. One of the charges I've given both the Bureau and the pub is to think about ways of expanding this program to qualified older adults, with an eye particularly to keeping people in their homes who want to age in home, but who are finding that their suite of utility bills are becoming a burden.
So if I'm eligible, or if one is eligible for this program, for the reduced rate, is it likely that there are also other programs on this whole other list of utilities that are similar? If I'm eligible,
parts of
like
it might
natural
be.
gas, the internet service, cable, cell phone, electricity, are there
And
similar programs for those?
I'm not an expert on their other programs, but I know PGE does and Northwest Natural does.
I'm just
I
wondering,
can't say.
my thinking is if we can find one
Connect
person
the
who's
dot.
eligible for the water rate reduction and doesn't know it, there are probably other ways they could reduce their cost of living that they're also eligible for that they also don't know about. So it seems like a coordinated
There's a
effort to-
questionnaire online on 2-in-1, right? You plug in all your info and it tells you all the
What's
programs you might qualify for.
Yeah, we're,
That's a good question if it
We're,
qualifies for that.
we're working with our oversight bodies to think about how to expand beyond the thousands of people that now do take advantage of this program, Mayor. We want to expand that, and particularly the focus in the next year will be older adults who are eligible.
Great.
Right now, we have 6,500 people in the program.
Okay, so now I know why this is a 2-hour presentation. Sorry, I interrupted
That's all
you.
right.
Thank you.
That's all right.
So on to slide 8, comparison of our residential customers bill to others in the region. And Commissioner Fish has stated earlier that for those living in Lake Oswego and Tigard, they pay more than our Portland customers. And for those living in Gresham and within the West Slope Water District, they pay a little less. And then lastly, on the last slide, 9, is Portland's proposed system development charges for water. And we compare fairly low among the jurisdictions around us.
That's interesting, too.
So Commissioner Fish, are we going to hold questions or more questions until?
Yes, the mayor would like us to do the combined presentation, take questions, initial questions from the council, then we have invited testimony, then public testimony.
Okay, so now I'd like to turn it over to Mike Jordan from Bureau of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for the record, my name is Mike Jordan. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Environmental Services. Here to do basically the same thing Mike just did for BES and talk just a little bit about how our rates are derived. With me today is Jonas Beery, Business Services Manager for the Bureau, and he'll talk in a little more detail as Cecilia did. So on slide 2, you passed the budget yesterday. I don't have to remind you really about what you passed for, but this just gives you a very high-level description of what the Bureau operates. So we have 99 pump stations across the city. There are 2 treatment plants, including the largest one in the state of Oregon. We obviously do stormwater management. I think the next bullet is perhaps one of the drivers, and I'll talk a little bit about it on a later slide, and that is the maintenance and reconstruction of the system. It's a huge issue for us, and we've talked a lot about Superfund and the city's role in Superfund, which is, of course, in transition right now with the ROD. On the next slide, again, our budget is constructed to maintain a current level of service with some additions, and you'll recall the decision packages that we brought forward during the budget process. They fell into these categories, and I'll just mention the last 2, along with that third bullet on the previous slide regarding maintenance and reconstruction. We continue to do enhanced level of system planning and maintenance, and the last one, understanding the condition of what is a 80 to 120-year-old system is a big part of what we do. All of those things driving toward the bottom of that slide, which is how do we build a sustainable investment in the asset that can have stable financials over the long term. That's what we're trying to do. The next slide kind of gives you the big picture in the numbers. And that pie chart is divided, as you can see, intentionally. The sections of the pie that hold the green hue are related to capital. The debt service, that's past capital that we've already built. Much of that is big pipe. The current capital is the $114 million in the middle there. That's what we intend to spend in the next fiscal year. And then the $40 million is really a combination of expenditures geared towards future capital and stabilizing our rates. And so as you can see, if you count those up, it's 2/3 of our budget. 67% of the budget is geared toward capital investment in the system and maintaining it over the long term. So on the next slide, you see what all of that spending does to rates. The average single-family residential monthly sewer and stormwater bill for next year, we're proposing, will increase by $2.06 or 2.95%. Some of you will recall that last year when we were here, we made a projection about rates into the future, not just last year's rates. Our projection last year for this year was going to be 3.25. So we're down a little from the projection. We're hoping that that trend can continue. But it represents about a $2.06 increase. You can see from the graph, current bill is $69.80, and the future bill, if approved, would be $71.86. You just had a little bit of a discussion. The first bullet on this program or on this slide is exactly the same program. It's a program we just talked about, and you can see we have approximately 6,650 folks in the program. It qualifies on our side as a $31.68 reduction in that bill we just talked about for folks who qualify for that program.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry to keep raising questions about
Certainly.
this. How is that rate, just in a broad sense, in a couple of sentences, how is that rate picked? Is it simply the 60% MFI cutoff, so it varies as the federal government redefines the MFI brackets?
My understanding is that's correct. That's the threshold we use for
Okay,
qualification.
thank you, that's helpful.
You bet. And then the second bullet is a different program that we use. We call the Clean River Rewards Program. It's currently authorized through June of 2019. We will bring some information about that program back to you in the next fiscal year in talking about reauthorizing the program for the future. But as you can see, there are almost 36,000 accounts on that program, and the discount is about $9.60 on an average bill. The way people qualify for that is to do things to manage stormwater on their own site. It can be multiple different techniques that they use, like disconnecting their downspouts from the stormwater system, or building a Green Street facility, or not a Green Street facility, but a retention facility on their property. Those kinds of things that they can do to get a reduction in the stormwater portion of the bill.
So what's so great about this data is Commissioner Fish and Commissioner Udaly, working with you, can actually back into the number of people who potentially, or the number of households that qualify for this program that aren't receiving it. If we know there's 7,300 people on the program and we know it's the 60% MFI cutoff, and we have the HUD data telling us what percentage of households in Portland are at 60% and under, we should be able to get a pretty quick cut and dirty on the number of people who should be on this program but aren't.
Mr. Mayor, you're absolutely right. As far as at kind of the macro level, being able to understand what the delta is, as Mike mentioned, there have been many folks for many years trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that we don't send a bill to the majority of the folks who are in that income bracket. And so how do we get it to them in an equitable way and with some knowledge that we're getting the money to the right place? That's the challenge.
I would say, Mike, there's probably three questions that we continue to look at. One is, who's eligible? Number two is, how do we pass the discount to that person? And particularly in the instance where they don't have their own individual meter. And by the way, this is one of the reasons we have considered for some time changing the building code to require individually metered units in all new multifamily development, because that would solve the problem. And in addition to who's eligible and how do they receive the discount, the third question is, how much do we want, how big a subsidy should we have, and what's the impact on rates? Those are the three questions that we have to grapple with.
Commissioner Udaly, did you have a comment?
Oh, I don't want to keep interrupting.
So with
Try
that,
to
Mr.
slow
Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to Jonas, who's going to talk about some of the details on the rates.
Great, thank you. And one just minor correction, because it came up in discussion, the slide that's shown on the screen says 7,300 customers. That's actually not been updated. The correct number is 6,650. So since it came up, I just wanted to correct that for the record. It's actually a slightly lower, and we failed to get that updated here, so apologies for that. So Mike talked a minute ago about stable financial condition. He mentioned last year at this time we came forward with a rate increase of 325, and I want to point out that last year we also set a bar that rate increase, when we talk about a rate increase, we're talking about every year of the forecast. So as you can see now, we're at 295, and 295 for the entire forecasts. And I would also add that goes beyond this 5-year forecast. That's out into the future. That's a big, important piece of how we're getting to the stable financial condition, that we can be predictable and consistent. As noted on the slide, and as Cecilia discussed, we also use the Rate Stabilization Fund to help get to that consistent, long-term, predictable rate increase strategy. I want to take a minute here in thinking about the long-term stability. The other primary tool that we use to get there is the use of our long-term debt and the debt planning we do. So what this slide shows you is the increase kind of in 2000 to around 2011 in debt issuance, outstanding bonds, and that's almost exclusively related to the billion-dollar-plus Big Pipe project. That's what led to some large rate increases, as the Commissioner and others have noted. As the debt service to pay off those bonds increased, rates also increased. We're now at a point where we're starting to pay off that Big Pipe debt, and we're only issuing, as you can see here, the lighter green, we're issuing debt at about the same amount as we're paying it off on average. And so you see that stability in the long-term debt. That really helps us have a strategy to stabilize rates, because we're not needing to increase rates specifically to address an increasing debt burden. The other thing that's happening here, as I think the commissioners noted during the budget discussions, is we're shifting over time away from funding the entire capital program with debt, or essentially the entire capital program with debt, to a better mix of cash and debt. So there's some intergenerational equity advantages there. And lastly, I would say from the combination of a improved rate increase profile, meaning lower projected rate increases and predictable rate increases, increases in cash balances, and the decrease or stability in the debt burden put us on a path toward potential rating upgrades, which have obviously some other advantages in reducing costs of borrowing going forward. How do we compare with our peers? I would say good news here, we compare fairly favorably. a little less expensive in a couple of cities you see here and a little more expensive in others. I would point out on this slide that 3 or 4 years ago, we would have been much higher on this list. In fact, we were about third or fourth among these comparison cities. And as we've been able to reduce our rate increases, we've been able to move down that list and compare more favorably. I'd also note that because we're on a path to have sub 3% rate increases for the foreseeable future, that's our target anyway, we're likely to continue to see improvement in this over time as other peers are potentially facing larger annual rate increases for the next few. Going to the rate ordinance, I want to mention that the rate ordinance also does authorize changes to system development charges and connection fees. I won't go over this stuff in great detail, and I would reiterate what Director Stewart from the Water Bureau said. Our SDCs are backward-looking or reimbursement SDCs to pay for capacity that we've already built into the system to accommodate growth. You don't see a single percentage here on the SDCs. Our SDCs have two components, a sanitary component that's based on sort of a fixed EDU, equivalent dwelling unit assumption. That increases about 5.8%. The other component of our SDCs is the stormwater component. It's a much more variable application based upon some specific details of the development, but we gave you a couple examples to see the kind of range for some common developments. So the combined SDC increase for single-family residential, about 7.6%. For a larger office building, 11. Generally, the combined range is between 6 and kind of 15-ish based upon the circumstance. The last slide I will cover is just quickly mentioning that we also have in the rate ordinance, I think maybe about 5 of the 6 pages or 5 of the 7 pages are a big list of various review fees, particularly mostly building plan reviews and land use review fees. Most of these are charged on a cost recovery basis, meaning we come up with the charges based upon what it costs us to run the program, and happy to say that for the most part those fees are stable and in some circumstances even decreasing to some degree. And covering it quickly, happy to address questions, but I'll hand it back to Director Jordan.
So I don't know if it's an honor or dubious distinction, but I get to talk about the last slide, which is the cumulative effect of both of our bureaus on the bill. And as you can see, at a typical single-family residential water and sewer and stormwater monthly bill, so this is the combined bill, currently is $103.63, and it would be moving, if approved, to $107.97. That's just under a 4.2% combined increase for the entire bill. And with that, I think we all are prepared to answer your questions.
Commissioner Fritz?
So how many of the customers have switched to the monthly billing rather than quarterly billing?
Oh, my goodness.
Over 20.
Over 20,000. I'm sorry, I didn't bring the number.
Well, I'm just wondering, it's a lot, but it's not everybody
But it's not necessarily, it sounds like that might be a good thing, but if you're having trouble paying your bill, you might not want to be on monthly billing because you can't get the payments made within this 14-day cycle of the billing. So we work very carefully with customers, particularly in the low income, to help them choose the right thing. It's not intuitive that, intuitively you would think monthly billing is always better, but it's not necessarily so.
Well, I know it's been one of the issues in the past that people see the one bill and think that that's for 1 month, and it's generally not.
Well, as we've said,
It's the quarterly.
if you got a quarterly bill from Comcast, you'd have a heart attack.
Yeah.
We offer it aggressively because there's other advantages. If someone signs up for a monthly bill, particularly e-bill, then we can have the ability to send them other communications on an ongoing basis. I think it's the mid-20s will get you the current number.
Yeah.
And Mayor Hales, for example, felt very strongly that if more people got a monthly bill, it would create a better narrative about the cost of utilities because they'd be comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, so as going forward each year, I'd like to know kind of that proportion, just for interest's sake. I'm glad that it is offered now, which is a major achievement since you've been the commissioner in charge.
Mike's note to self is always bring Kathy Cook with me. Come over here.
Commissioner Saltzman?
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding right. The annual operating budget of the Water Bureau is roughly $145 million, and BES is roughly $364 million?
Roughly.
Okay. Yeah, I never realized there was quite that difference, of almost $200 million.
they can talk about their bill, but when I look at the numbers, to me, it's kind of intuitive. They have a huge amount of operating machinery that we don't have that is very expensive.
Right.
And any ditch they dig, you almost have to shore. So our pipes themselves cost about the same. But once they get beyond the curb, they're shoring, and I'm cruising along 5 feet deep and mostly not shoring. So what they have is much more expensive than what
I was,
we do.
So
go ahead.
I guess I just wanted to refer the council back to the pie chart slide. You can see there that our total proposed budget for the year, $493.5 million. And you can see the operating and overheads, basically, side of the budget is about $160 million. And those are, I would say, I don't know what numbers you're looking at, Commissioner, but those are imperfect segregations of the budget. We presented this slide to try and show people how much of our annual budget goes towards capital and debt service on capital, so.
Yeah, I'm looking at the impact statement that you filed. It says the rate ordinance will generate $364 million in operating revenue.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Commissioner, I believe that the difference is that number includes the debt service payment. So we're reflecting it on this slide as the capital cost, but it's treated because that's an annual payment.
So the 364 includes?
Includes the $179 million debt service.
Okay. And then I was speaking to some independent restaurant owners the other night and got hammered on the Fats, Oil, and Grease program, or FOG.
No, I'm sorry.
I just want to make sure, we do charge, the Fats, Oil, and Grease program applies to any commercial generator of food waste, is that right?
That's correct,
Yeah.
generally. Obviously, that program hasn't been around forever. And so we have an awful lot of establishments that were around before the program was in place. So what normally happens is either A, they're doing something which triggers a permit, which allows us to talk to them about the kind of facility they need in their kitchen for fats, oil, and grease. Or as we TV the lines, we find the evidence of one of those establishments that may be discharging a large amount of fat, oil, and grease, which allows us to go in and talk to them about they're impacting the system. And so then we may be talking about a retrofit or something like that regarding fats, oil, and grease. That's correct.
And finally, I just want to know, am I the last person in the world that still does a voluntary contribution to the Green Bucks program? For stormwater
No,
improvements?
you're not the last person in the
Oh, I
world.
see Sonia's hand went up.
No, we have
Okay.
a number of people who still are. I don't know the exact number, maybe.
How much how much money is the voluntary program raise?
That's a great question, Commissioner, and it's a program we're looking at right now. I believe there's about $6,000 a year that we collect. I can share that we haven't dispersed that the past couple of years because we haven't had requests from the qualifying school districts to accept that money, and we're doing that outreach right now this month with school districts to see if anyone is interested, and then look at what do we do with that program.
Commissioner Daly?
I just want to be clear that the low-income assistance program is only for the water portion of the bill. No, it's for the whole bill, and it cuts it in half.
That's right.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Great, Commissioner
Mayor, I just want to
Fish.
follow up on a question that Dan asked. So I think, Dan, actually it was under your watch that we launched the Fats, Oil, and Grease program, the FOG program. And the idea is that certain establishments were releasing things into the system that had a terrible impact. And so we were trying to do some treatment before it got into the pipes and clogged things up. A couple of things we've done is that we've tried to reach out to more businesses to let them know what our discount and payment plans. We have discount programs and payment plans, so we're able to soften the impact. We're particularly obviously concerned about a big unanticipated cost to a business where historically the chances of survival in year one for a new restaurant are pretty low. So we will work with businesses to try to allow them to finance the cost. We're trying to make sure they understand more about discounts. And the third thing we've done is we've been doing outreach into some of the newer communities of our city, like the Asian restaurants out on 82nd and the like, doing specific targeted presentations to people with translators so they understand the programs and the various benefits that we offer. Obviously, we can do better, but I think we're making some progress on that.
To piggyback,
You get hammered by the restaurant industry.
yeah, to piggyback on your comment, Commissioner, we just finished production on, I believe it's 6 different language-oriented videos to go and make that presentation at different communities where language is a challenge. With some of these entrepreneurs, language is a challenge. And so we've produced some things to do that outreach and try to reach those communities. So.
Thank you. So Mayor, we have an invited panel.
Very good.
Would Alan Warman, Pub Co-Chair, and Janice Thompson from the Citizens Utility Board of Oregon please come forward? And we've budgeted 5 minutes for each of them. Alan, why don't you start? And thank you for your service on the Portland Utility Board, and we appreciate the guidance you gave us during the budget process and your being here today to testify.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
I think the pub has some concerns and some opportunities to say well done to the bureaus. But the fact is, the bureaus, these 2 bureaus, make up 20% of our overall city spending. And the pub was basically created by you to provide the year-round oversight and recommendations to the council and to the mayor. The board has spent 8 months working with the bureaus to review their 5-year financial plans, rate forecasts, capital plans, operating budgets, decision plans, and also the CBO analysis of the requested budgets. Through this budget process, the pub encouraged both bureaus to be mindful in their requests and make strategic choices about their core mission needs, keeping the financial impact of customers as a priority. The pub believes the programs and staff that would be supported by the rate increases being considered today reflects those needs and choices and is supportive of the funding included in the adopted budget documents. Both bureaus are facing unique challenges. The Water Bureau is undertaking 2 very large construction projects to increase the resiliency of their system. At the same time, there is uncertainty with regard to water quality and future regulatory requirements. The Bureau presented the corrosion control treatment pilot ordinance to the pub prior to the council action and worked with our staff to ensure that there was open communication and transparency with the pub regarding the cryptosporidium findings and the operational decisions. The pub supports and looks forward to this continued open dialogue as the Bureau addresses these regulatory challenges and progresses through these major construction projects. BES is in their 2nd year of a major strategic planning effort and hopes to be in a position next budget season to use that plan to align budgeting decisions with program priorities and performance indicators. The Bureau's vision includes more than doubling capital output to address system capacity and aging infrastructures. They are working through a plan now to address capital project production. PUB strongly supports this work and is encouraged by the general direction of the Bureau. These foundational and process changes will be critical to the Bureau's long-term success, and the PUB will follow and watch these changes closely. While the board sees encouraging process changes and transparency issues in both bureaus, we remain concerned about the long-term cost projections for our Portland customers. Current rates of increase in the proposed budgets are 6.7 for the Water Bureau and 2.9 for the BES, for a combined rate increase of 4.9.
4.2.
4.19.
4.19.
What did I say?
4.9.
Oh, sorry. We normally talk about monthly budget impacts for customers, but more than 87% of Portland customers pay their bill quarterly. So as of, April 1st, 12.69% of customers paid monthly, 22,554 according to the city's budgets. So that's, at this current forecasted rates of increase in the next 5 years, Portland customers are facing almost a $385 quarterly bill in 2022, or essentially about $1,530 on an annual basis. And this does not include a potentially costly treatment facility for the Water Bureau. The pub remains concerned that the rate increases are above inflation and that would basically be about a 20% compounded increases over the 5 years. We look forward to continuing to work with the Bureau and with you, Mayor, and Commissioners to encourage utility operations and investments that ensure our safety, value, transparency, and financial stability of these systems for the customers. In closing, you created the pub to provide a citizen oversight of the bureaus, and the pub appreciates the opportunity to provide that feedback at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it very much. Thank you for your service as well.
Janice Thompson, Oregon Citizens Utility Board.
Thank you.
CUB was invited to be an outside independent oversight entity by the City Council back in 2014. This memo has some comments on the current most recently adopted budget and rates, as well as identifying some future topics. I'm not going to go through every bit in it, but I'll just kind of walk it through and highlight a few items. A due diligence topic up front that I want to reassure Commissioner Fish is not meant to imply that there should be any change in the current Bureau assignment or, well, the most recent current Bureau assignment. I know right now they're all in the hands of the mayor. Nevertheless, periodic shifts in Bureau assignments by the mayor do occur, and I just want to highlight if at some point in the future reassignment is considered, the value I have seen since 2014 of having one commissioner in charge for both bureaus. In looking back, it's kind of surprisingly rare how often that's occurred. As has been mentioned, there's you've gone through the rate increases. I apologize, I have a little typo about the combined rate increases being 4.19, not 4.17. There I want to highlight kind of at the very bottom of that page, the BS increase actually would have been a little higher yet, but for previous councils adopting two advocacy items that CUB brought before the body related to what we viewed as being inappropriate developer subsidies, particularly related to sewer system development charges. Once those changes are made, they have kind of an ongoing impact. And so in other words, if those changes had not been made, the rate increase even this year would have been higher than otherwise. It's kind of nice when you can make a change that is a little kind of gift for ratepayers that keeps on giving, keeping those dollars in their pockets. Nevertheless, these combined rate, though I think many bureaus would view, or many utilities across the country would view as being pretty favorable, they do add up, as Alan's testimony illustrated in more detail. Two helpful trends I kind of highlighted at the top of page 2, though, that I think merit attention. One is how BES, even in this environment where they're mapping out a game plan where they can even do more, they're looking like they can, on a long-term basis, project this 2.95% increase and possibly even nudge it down. The second thing I want to highlight is that the Water Bureau's requested annual rate forecast of 6.7% from here through 2021 is significantly lower than what had previously been thought. So that leveling off on the water side in terms of forecasts is indeed a positive trend. The rest of page 2 includes some budget process timing suggestions. In terms on page 3, there's some discussion of why it is the requested budget from BS was slightly lower, primarily focusing on a shift of almost $1 million in general fund support for a tree planting contract that previously had, like I say, a shift to ratepayers of almost $1 million that had previously been paid out of the general fund. This, you know, whenever CUB sees these kinds of adjustments, we always look particularly carefully. In this case, the use of general funds for this particular tree planting contract only began in 2014 during a time when then Mayor Hales was particularly focused on rate mitigation steps. We get it that tree planting is definitely a valid BES function. So the shift we deemed as being appropriate. There's the rest of that page, some additional BES budget fine tuning that was occurred. The top of page 4, I have a suggestion to BES related to the formatting of kind of their decision packages, kind of a nitty-gritty, but trying to look for opportunities for improvement. Future issues that are going to become before you from the BS side, biogas is a project that's getting underway, but there are some ancillary projects related to the feedstock options, and so that's something that CUB has been monitoring for quite some time and will continue to monitor. There's already been discussion of the Clean River rewards.
By the way, Janice, can I just say, I think evidence of how successful the partnership has been with your organization is you raised some red flags about biogas early, and so we slowed down and we addressed them, and it was only when we got the green light from both of you that we moved forward, and we really appreciate the scrubbing that you did of that proposal.
So I won't repeat. There have been some previous discussion, a little bit more details here about evaluating the Clean River Rewards discount. Through a kind of complaint that phone call I got, we are also taking a look at, with BES, of a kind of a fair, kind of a consumer fairness issue related to how the winter average sewer base charge is calculated for low volume customers. On page 5, I just want to highlight something called the rainfill-derived inflow and infiltration effort. This included a pilot project that to ensure adequate participation so the pilot would, you know, provide good results, did include BS paying in total for some private property work. CUB believes in pilot projects and, you know, so gets that dynamic. But BS, or CUB will be urging BS to clarify the status of these pilots. And as my understanding is that they're about to wind down. You know, projects timings can vary though, but it's important to really delineate the end of that pilot, because at that point, any future work on private laterals needs significant oversight vetting regarding if and or how costs should be split between BES and any private landowner. So in other words, kind of okay during the pilot for BES to cover those costs. Once that pilot is done, then it needs to be looked at much more carefully. The best case scenario is that, and this is all driven, by the way, by DEQ requirements. So the best case scenario is what will continue to keep DEQ happy will be continued work on this lining of the sewer pipes in public right-of-ways. if that doesn't quite suffice, then I think taking a look at some point of sale requirements is an option, but again, that kind of approach also needs adequate oversight vetting. There's a few comments here about risk factors and updating some important studies. I'll let you read that. Turning to the very bottom of page 5 and the Water Bureau budget, I just have some comments there related to the need to recognize the Water Bureau and the folks that they work with as being kind of the water quality experts for the city. And so that in that regard, it was a little troubling to see that the Bureau's top priority staffing request that had a water quality element was not honored. So I just think that needs kind of important attention from the future. In terms of Water Bureau future issues, new hydro power contracts are on their way, and quite frankly, it will be less lucrative for the city. But that is totally related to kind of market changes. Portland General Electric is totally, it's totally understandable that Portland General Electric needed to change it, the deal that they had with the city. And the deal with the city was really, really good, and is just under current market realities is not going to be duplicated. But that's an interesting topic for us at CUB because I have colleagues with the energy expertise to kind of take a look at this. Corrosion control treatment is obviously going to be a risk factor, as well as taking a look at all treatment options related to cryptosporidium down the line. And then a final comment on page 7 rather, is just highlighting that the Water Bureau is starting a major update of a supply system master plan, and as that moves forward, it could be another topic that circles back to the City Council.
I have a comment. I want to thank you for the thoroughness of this report. As somebody who is not completely up to date on all of the issues confronting the system, I found this exceptionally helpful. And so I want to thank you and the other folks who are working on your committee. Same with the CUB. I just think your work is fantastic, and it's not only important from an accountability perspective, but I think it's just great to have outside experts taking a look at these issues and helping us problem solve and coming up with good strategies. So it's, I see it as a win-win, and I really appreciate the time and energy you've all put into this work. Thank you. Commissioner Fritz.
Yeah, I also want to thank you for your advice, and it's very helpful from both aspects. Janice, I just had a question about consolidating the Cayenta billing system staff within the Water Bureau. What you're saying is they're currently in the Revenue Bureau and they'd be better in the Water Bureau.
Yes.
Have you thought about whether that should be done if we're going to be moving to a 311 system in the next 2 or 3 years? In other words, if we're going to consolidate all of the billing staff in 311, is it worth moving them now and then moving them again?
Yes.
Because?
Because it's something that should have been done about 3 years ago.
And explain to me the factors of that. Why? Why?
The Water Bureau is paying for those Revenue Bureau staff people, and I just think it's much more judicious use of ratepayer funds, and it's been documented that it also would be a little cheaper if all those folks were within the Water Bureau.
Mm-hmm. And Commissioner, is there a reason why that hasn't been done?
Yes.
I figured there would be. That's why I asked the question.
There has been a strong disagreement from OMF to the Water Bureau's request that we do this, but under this mayor, there's been a thaw in those conversations, and I agree with Janice. This is a long overdue issue. because I had 100 other issues on my plate that required my attention. It was not number one on my list, but we believe the case has been made that since we purchased this equipment and with ratepayer dollars, and since it is primarily serving us, that we have control of it, but it need not have any consequences to other partners that use it, because we would simply continue to contract with them. But I would just say politely, there have been philosophical disagreements over this issue, and I'm delighted with the approach that the new CAO has taken in our negotiations.
That's very tactful and tells me what I needed to know. Thank you.
Mike, was that tactful enough? It was excellent, sir. Thank you. So, thank you both very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Very good. Susan, do we have public testimony today?
We have 4 testifiers.
Very good.
First 3, Mimi Gurman, Dee White, and Carol Cushman.
Come on up.
I'm going to take more than, how many minutes do I get, 2 or 3?
3, but listen, if you need a minute more, that's fine.
All right, thank you.
All right, there's only 4 people.
I'm going to jump around, so I'll hit
All
the
right.
high points first.
Sure.
The Portland Water Bureau should be renamed the
Could you put
Portland...
your name in the record?
Oh, sorry. Dee White. The Portland Water Bureau should be renamed the Portland Engineering and Construction Corporation, Nick Fish, CEO. The mission statement should be build, build, build. Money is life, not water. Screw the community. Over the course of 20 years, the mission and purpose of the Water Bureau has changed from being a water provider with public health as its top priority to construction and engineering outfit, profiting from destroying our sustainable water system and profiting while our children are being poisoned with lead and toxic chemical-laced water from corroded pipes, stagnant corrosive water, and radioactive gas. This policy, this arrogant behavior, this deceptive and dishonest...
Excuse me, I'm going to have to ask you, please, as I said right up front, it's okay to be critical of the policy, but please do not question the integrity of people. Let's all
I
just
haven't
assume
said
that
where have I said anything about people?
this dishonesty and lack of transparency is questioning somebody's integrity. Well, listen.
I'm not
let's just stick
criticizing
to
anyone.
the policy. Let's stick to the policy. Thank you.
The policy? Well, okay. This dysfunctional and undemocratic form of government that we are stuck with have our hands tied. We've been cynically instructed by the city attorneys that the only way to address change and accountability at City Hall is at the ballot box. Well, Ted Wheeler, we turned to the ballot box and elected you. You campaigned on reshaping the city. You pledged to run your office with honesty, integrity, and fiscal restraint, and we elected you to do just that. I respectfully demand that you retain the Water Bureau in the mayor's office once this mind-numbing public utility budget is approved. With your expertise and experience in overseeing budgets and spending, we ask that you and your team scrutinize every project, every contract, every revenue bond from the Water Bureau. I'm going to skip over. The most terrifying thing about this budget is the debt load. We're currently $650 million in debt. Over the next 5 years, $1.2 billion is requested in revenue bonds. The 5-year CIP asks for an additional $519 million. What is the other $550 million going to? A filtration plant. Y'all aren't going to say that. Do you really think that ratepayers are going to be able to withstand the rate increases that will occur to pay off this debt? $1.2 billion more than, on top of the $650. Wholesale revenue and demand is rapidly declining and will be reduced by at least 50% over the next 8 years. How could anyone look at this outstanding debt schedule and not believe that our water system is heading toward privatization? The second thing, the most important thing you can do right now is reallocate the $15 million for the new treatment facility and redirect it to a unidirectional flushing program for the entire city. Our pipes are dangerously corroded, and they need to be cleaned before more chemicals are dumped into our water to try and fix this lead problem, which y'all also stymie. I mean, y'all are under orders from the EPA and the OHA to immediately reduce the lead using existing infrastructure, meaning pipes, and here you cancel the position for flushing. It's ridiculous. There's no safe level of lead. Lead accumulates. Old, stagnant water is also a major contributor to the lead and corrosion problem. Portland Water Bureau has been mitigating this problem for 2 years under orders from the EPA and the OHA. Both tanks at Powell Butte are empty right now and have been for months, if not years, and will most likely never be used again. We've got too much storage, and y'all knew it, and the demand has been going down. Powell Butte will never, one of them is completely flawed. The other one is empty because it needs a new roof. So they're both empty. And we're still having an aging water problem. We don't need another pipe running underneath the Willamette. Redundancy is built into the system already throughout the west side from sources of water on the west side. Last year, the Water Bureau helped pay for a truck-mounted portable pump station that can redirect water in Washington County for emergencies. Why not invest in some of these portable pump stations on both sides of the river rather than depending on redundancy under a river when we got it already out there in place? We don't need another pipe. We have mothballed infrastructure barely 4 years old. We have dangerous water quality problems with lead, radon, toxic chemicals. We have thousands of hours in deferred maintenance, mainly cleaning the corroded pipes. Wholesale revenues and demand are permanently declining, and the biggest travesty in Portland history is going on up at Washington Park. The Water Bureau, in my opinion, and the opinion of many people, is a festering sore in this community. It seems the more money we pay for the essential service of water, the worse our public health problems get. The Portland Water Bureau has failed its mission of being responsible stewards of the public's water infrastructure, fiscal, and natural resources. They're not putting the public health first, and is fiscally irresponsible with ratepayer money. Ongoing upper management decisions are resulting in critical public health issues and unsafe drinking water.
Excellent, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, my name is Mimi Gurman, and on my way, before I came over here today, I farm, and I brought everybody some food from my farm, and I promise you that unless there's lead in it, it's all good. And I have radishes and turnips for you from my farm. And while I was pulling these today, what we do with our food is we give it away. We don't have a nonprofit. I'm part of a nonprofit that I started, which is called No Nukes Northwest, which actually has to do partly with why I'm here regarding the radon. But I need to know that our water is safe for these people that I bring this food to. There's no chemicals on it from me. And I bring this multiple times a week to Dawson Park. There's a community that hangs out in the park, and they all, for the most part, have spaces with kitchens, and so I bring food for them to use, you know? It's important to me to know that our pipes, knowing that they need to get flushed, do get flushed to deal with this lead issue. I've learned a lot, actually, from Dee recently, and paid attention a lot to what's been going on with our reservoirs in the past. And what I do know is that we have a big problem. So I just took some notes today, and my first thing is to agree with Dee that we need to, the EPA has demanded that we flush the unidirectional pipes to get rid of lead. Let's do it. Why would we say yes to giving more money to the Water Bureau if they haven't done the work that they've been tasked to do? Radon creates lung cancer. How many people who work at the reservoirs with the caps on them, and again, I'm new to all this, are in the long run harming themselves due to the great amounts of radon. Can't get rid of it once it's in you. And it's a huge killer. It's one of the, it might even be at this point the #1 rate for lung cancer over cigarettes. And I'm not sure if it has switched with cigarettes or not yet, but it's a big deal. There's no reason that knowing that our area in the Northwest is high anyway for radon, just naturally, you know, that we would cap something and create more of it with improper ventilation. So I'm saying, look at the ventilation system and deal with the radon. I live in St. John's. There's a whole team in St. John's. I forget what they're called. It's right on the corner across from the McMenamins. And what they do is radon testing. I don't think it's fair, Commissioner, to say that water is only 1/3 of the bill. For those of us who pay water bills, the whole thing is the water bill. Sewer is water, toilets are water, it's all water. We can't really pick things apart like that because it's convenient. So I just want to go, cryptosporidium tests. I looked those up last year and found out that the testing for cryptosporidium that we use has a high false positive. And I don't know why we're using that. I would think that everybody would want to save money by finding out if that is in fact true. And if you Google that particular test, and I don't know the name right now, but if you look that up, you'll see that it has a high false positive rate. So why are we using that to create billions or many millions of more dollars to do things that we might not need to do because our water's already safe? Just saying, something to look at. And I think, and I appreciate this gap so I can just cruise through here. Radon talked about, environmental services. Take care of the environment. Get rid of the lead, get rid of the radon, and then come back with those reports that this was done and represent what you've done, and then ask for the raise. That's my testimony.
Thank you, appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Carol, if you come to one more hearing this week, you're going to get a bonus.
I don't think there is one more hearing, so, and I'm leaving town tomorrow, sorry. This is their last time here. I'm Carol Cushman, representing the League of Women Voters of Portland. The League supported creation of the Portland Utility Board, the pub, and as proposed by the Blue Ribbon Commission and adopted by City Council, a League representative regularly attends their meetings. In addition, the League supported the city's designation of CUB as an independent advocate for residential ratepayers served by BES and the Water Bureau, and value highly its continued involvement in the process. Portland has been a leader in protecting and enhancing our environment and promoting innovation by piloting new approaches to functions such as watershed protection and stormwater management by the city's utility bureaus. It is important that we continue to build on past successes with the understanding that there are costs involved that will affect our rates and may end up raising them a few cents here and there. The information and options presented to the pub should be improved by giving the utility bureaus the opportunity to share their rationale for specific items the CBO did not include in its recommended budget. As an example, the Water Bureau's top priority request was an additional staff person in unidirectional flushing, which I'm surprised everybody else is talking about it today. I just picked it as an example because it is a water quality issue. The CBO recommended delaying on the request. We think the process would have been improved if the pub had given the Water Bureau the opportunity to explain its disagreement with the CBO recommendation. This would have provided the pub with a more complete understanding of the budget request before making its recommendations to council. Finally, it's vital that maintenance of our aging utility systems continues. Rates may go up due to the cost of repair and replacement, but in the long run, it may be less expensive than addressing future failures. Thank you. And I'm not saying there are failures coming. I'm just saying, realize that's part of the rates.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Joe Walsh. I represent Individuals for Justice. And this is really comical for me because I'm not an environmentalist. So I don't normally get involved in these issues, except the time that we came and we begged you not to cover the reservoirs. We begged you to fight it in court as long as you could fight it and spend the money, because we knew that down the line it was going to be hundreds of millions of dollars that was going to be wasted. Wasted, because we're going to end up with crap water. We're going to end up with Flint water. That's what you're going to give us. down the line, and there's nobody here to protest it. I'm not an expert in this area. Why am I here yelling at you when you should have environmentalists here yelling at you, and you should have the League of Women Voters yelling at you, not for the repairs that you have to make, not for the water that you have to inspect. It's the money you wasted. Do you know what the EPA is now? It's a country club under Trump. Do you think they're going to order you to do anything in the environment? No. You could have skated free, and New York will. And we asked you to get a waiver. We begged you to get a waiver. And you said, drop dead. That's what you told us, drop dead.
That was rude, Nick.
So you sit there, you millionaires, and you spend money like it's water. Isn't that a nice picture, Commissioner Fish? Are you a millionaire? You're the only one that I don't know about. Know about Chloe. Congratulations. But we don't know about you. But you three, we know. And when the people of this city realize what you've done today, you better hold your next meeting in Reservoir 6 at 2 o'clock in the morning. Because if you want to hide the damn thing, do it right. Don't do it on a Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock when people have to take off from work to come and tell you the rates are too high. On my Social Security, we got zip because inflation is almost zip. But you want 6%. But it's only 4% because sewer and water is different. You turn the tap on there, Commissioner. You better have some sewerage. You could use some storage up there.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Mayor, if I could.
Don't thank me ever, ever.
Excuse me, you're out of order. Excuse
Don't
me.
you thank me
Mr.
ever.
Walsh, this is a disruption. Please sit down. Commissioner Fish?
Mayor, I think earlier you made the point that the utilities need to continue to improve their communication skills and making sure the public has timely and accurate information. And that's my principal takeaway from this hearing, is that we still have more work to do. I want to acknowledge, since they won't be here next week, Mayor and colleagues, the professionals who work for the utilities. Would you all please stand for a second if you work for the utilities or support the utilities? These folks won't be here next week, but I want to thank them for their service. Thank you all. And I think Dan has some. Who do you want to bring up?
Water.
Mike, you want to come forward?
Celia. So yeah, I guess I wanted to find out more about this. And I know we had a briefing once about the lead in our water system, but were we ordered by DEQ to flush our system unidirectionally?
No.
We're not.
If we had been ordered to do so, we would be doing it. We generally follow EPA's direction.
So
there's a lot of.
Is it a good idea to do it? Did you actually? You asked for a position to do this?
We did, one position.
So if we don't get the position, does that mean we're not doing it?
No, we are doing it, but we're doing it with a crew and a half instead of 2 crews. Flushing does all kinds of things, but it doesn't do everything that was asserted here. Yes, it can help a little bit with lead because of particulate matter, but it doesn't help a lot. Ultimately, the problem with lead is lead pipes. That's it. And most of that problem, the vast majority of that problem, can be eliminated the way that we tell people to do. Run your tap. You run your tap for 30 seconds, you're not going to have a lead problem. There are all kinds of choices made in the budget process. Personally, I wished we'd have gotten that position. I may take one from somebody and create it anyway.
Mike, we're going to continue to, the CBO said to delay the funding for that. We're going to continue to advocate with the mayor's office to get the funding. And I just want to be clear, because people have a right to come up and exercise their First Amendment rights, and they, I guess, technically have a right to constantly misstate basic facts about our system. And the noteworthy thing about this hearing and the hearings predating this is that, other than our oversight bodies who have testified, Mayor, We've had no communication from anyone else in the public about this system or the proposed rates other than the people who testified. And we've had a virtual torrent of misinformation, which we could spend all day trying to correct, but I understand that people feel strongly and they have a right to say whatever's on their mind. We have no lead problem in our water. Our water system from the Bull Run until it's connected to someone's home or business or school does not have lead in it. We do have aging infrastructure in this city that have lead in the solder, and the school board has, through the bond measure, is going to replace old pipes and faucets, which is the absolutely only documented way to reduce lead to zero. And we have, as the council's been briefed, going to make some changes to water chemistry to reduce corrosion, and we've laid that out for you. The program of flushing our pipes is good for a lot of reasons. We continue to believe that an additional investment in that is good for the system, but we didn't get it in this budget.
But, well, I'm confused, because I thought you said it is going to occur. Is this going to occur with a crew and a half as opposed to 2 crews?
We do flush now. We flush based upon water quality concerns that arise in particular areas. It's something that Chris Warner and company monitor a lot. So we do flush now. We have a 2-person crew that does flushing and another half a person. We want to make 2 full crews. We have 2,700 miles of
So how long
pipes in the
does it take
city.
to, how long does it take to flush the system?
Honestly, I don't know.
70 years. It's in the budget.
Commissioner, if this is an issue that you care deeply about, we'll arrange for a briefing to your office on flushing, and we welcome your feedback.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the question. It was raised in testimony, and, Ms. White, I've known for many, many years. Don't always agree with her, but I respect her doggedness on Water Bureau budget.
Thank you, Dan. That's very helpful.
I have a question. I have just one more question, and I appreciate it. I'm sorry, that we have to get up here and be yelled at. Again, I think it's okay for people to disagree with us. That people should come up here and disagree with us, and they should hold us accountable. I just don't understand why people feel the need to come up and yell and be personal about it. It's not necessary for people to do that if they want us to hear. And I'm disappointed that people ask questions that I thought were good questions, and when they were done yelling, they got up and left before you have the opportunity to answer the question. So I'll ask the question again, because I thought it was a good question. What of this cryptosporidium issue? It's my understanding that it is not something that we want to do, this additional treatment plant, but there was some agreement we made with the Oregon Health.
Mayor, can I make a suggestion?
Clarify this for me.
Mayor,
Yes.
This is an issue that is an unfolding regulatory matter. This is a rate hearing. We'd like to have a separate proceeding on that.
Okay, good. I'd like to do that, because I'd like to know the facts on this, because there's a lot of discussion about it. There's a lot of people out in the community who are certainly asking questions about it, and I'd like to be fully informed on it.
We'll give
So
it to you,
let's
but
do that.
I just want to gently comment about my friend Dan Saltzman's comment about Dee White's doggedness. Since she has characterized the 20-year history of the Water Bureau as one characterized by arrogance, dishonesty, and lack of transparency. So that covers Dan's tenure and my tenure and Randy Leonard's tenure. I actually disagree fundamentally with it, and I don't view this as dogged advocacy. I think it's a deliberate campaign of misinformation and defamation. And with the exception of the proper spelling of her name in the statement, this is replete with false and misleading information, and I don't think we should enable it. She has a right to testify, and we have a right to say it's utter nonsense. But I thank you.
Any further comments or questions? That being said, both 520 and item 521, these are non-emergency first reading ordinances. I pass 520 and 521 to second reading. Thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.